I've been wanting to present this video for quite some time. This was recorded 5 days after I saw the first craft for certain. It was game on at that point. I recorded a lot of video that month. During this period, they would show up at about 8 a.m. every morning, as they currently do. I tracked their clusters on the radar. Sometimes they would come from the west, sometimes southeast, and sometimes the north. This was facing west. As usual, I didn't notice the specifics until I sped up the video later. Watch the cloud on the right. I call this the locomotive formation for obvious reasons. The cloud material is ejected from the front of the large basecraft, the aircraft carrier. This material is churned by the smaller craft above it, creating the illusion of a natural cloud. Smaller craft fly in advance of the system, emitting their own material and obscuring the front of the main craft. They come in pretty low in this video. It has given me a chance to go back and detail out the smaller ships, which were identified before, but not fully fleshed out in 3D just yet. Once the smoke and mirrors are removed, this is what the formation looks like.
Researchers have figured out how to disguise larger objects, and they say they're getting closer to making cloaks that would work with visible light. But metamaterials aren't the only way to make something invisible. Scientists at the University of Rochester arranged 4 standard glass lenses, so they created a region of invisibility too. It doesn't have quite the same potential as metamaterials, but the researchers behind the technology say it could help doctors see through their fingers when they're doing surgery, or let drivers see what's in their blind spots. Maybe they could figure out a way to make the selfie stick invisible, so you don't have to be seen with a selfie stick. One more way to be invisible? Instead of bending light around an object, just mimic it on the other side. It's the same way some animals like cephalopods and chameleons camouflage themselves, by changing the color of their skin to match what's around them. Video cameras and screens can recreate this active camouflage technique, which militaries are particularly interested in. The British defense contractor BAE came up with a system like that for tanks, and they say it could be ready for use in just a few years.
In this video, you're going to see an exciting and surprising demonstration of an invisibility cloak. We're going to show you how to get front scatter around an electrically large metal wall by using fractal metamaterials. You won't find this in any textbooks, so be prepared for something new. We generate substantial front scatter by using our patented fractal metamaterials to make a looped manifold that covers a metal wall. Fractal metamaterials generate evanescent surface waves which travel along the fractal metamaterial manifold and around the wall to the other side, and then decouple to a traveling wave. We don't go through the wall, but around it. The physics is well known, but this clever application makes for fascinating results and a new field of applied science. Now let's put the cloak cover on top of the metal wall. First, you're going to see the actual little fractals making up the metamaterial pattern, and then we're going to show you the sides and the top. Note the 2 layers of styrofoam used as mechanical spacers. Styrofoam has no impact on the cloak other than providing spacing for the fractal metamaterial. It's held together with blue RF transparent tape. Now watch what happens to the intensity when the metal wall is covered by these fractal metamaterial cloaking layers. Keep in mind the wall was down about 20 dB. Now you're going to see intensities have gone up dramatically. In fact, it's only a few dB to 0 dB in its peak relative to the direct path.
I showed this document briefly in an earlier video. It details the use of barium and strontium used for holography. It is public knowledge, and so is this patent for hologram clouds. I believe that this is just one way the combo is used to cloak, and it is still in use with some of the older craft where the reflective surface of the craft is possibly used. But it did not explain the small dark gray drones I had seen with my own eyes popping in and out of the clouds. Notice the different cloud colors, independent of lighting situation, sunrises and sunsets. Here's what I conclude. First, natural clouds are white, made solely of moisture. Sure, there are probably slight variations, but nothing like what's up there. I still see natural white clouds up until today, but only at a distance. They don't seem to make it over the city very much. Instead, they are blocked by the yellowish gray clouds, suspected to be strontium, which rusts when mixed with the atmosphere. The haze, the blanketing layers that encompass the city almost daily from high in the atmosphere, are silvery, but never white in any lighting situation. This is probably the hologram layer, which I will cover later. On the left is what you see in the sky, or what they want you to see. Fluffy white clouds. On the right is actually what is there. A main aircraft hovering or moving slowly with its nose up in the air. At the bottom of the craft, jets emit the cloud-like material, probably strontium, into the air, while the cloud top-shaped rear edge churns the material into billowing cloud formations. I believe that it's the 4 round identical engines on the back that emit this material. However, the stream that comes from the back forms into striations of 8 to 10 lines before it completely billows into a single cloud unit. These devices are literally spraying clouds.
If an airplane painted with nanotube coating were hit with a radar beam, nothing at all would bounce back, and it would appear as if nothing were there. This type of cloaking is very interesting, especially since they have demonstrated operation in the air, says Ray Bauman, director of the McDiarmid Nanotech Institute of the University of Texas at Dallas. Bauman recently demonstrated that nanotubes can form an invisibility cloak when they're heated up underwater. The heat from a sheet of nanotubes affects the optical properties of the surrounding water, creating the illusion of invisibility. Invisibility cloaks shield objects by manipulating incident light so that it simply flows around them. Nanotubes are relatively easy to make and work across a broad spectrum. A University of Michigan researcher and colleagues have created a new kind of nanostructured coating made of carbon nanotubes that could cloak an aircraft in complete blackness, concealing it in the visible range and beyond. That means that unlike other metamaterials that are the more spectrum specific, they can cloak an object not only from visible light, from things like radar as well.
So, it's a light wave sponge, just as earlier forms were just radar wave sponges. But here is the basic gist of this. You take one nanotube, electrically place it next to another, so on and so forth, until you form a coating, a carpet that traps and refracts light. Another color I've noticed is a darker bluish material. This seems to emanate from at least one source, the centered engine on the rear of the largest aircraft. This engine seems to be the one responsible for maintaining the aircraft's height above the ground. It is said that the anti-gravitational devices used are 98% efficient. So one upward thruster would be needed to make up for the 2% weight. Also, the exhaust port on this thruster seems to be different from the 4 cylindrical thrusters nearby. The exhaust is usually seen as a single downward pointing stream of whitish or bluish material. Finding the craft in satellite photographs has possibly confirmed this assessment. Having the time to research the possibility of information on these small craft already being available, I realized that yes, some of the descriptions I've been outlining fall in line with photographs of secret aircraft projects.
Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth in questioning everything to find truth. Voyage is the discovery of seeking new landscapes but having new eyes. I want to give a big shout out to Hugh is in our skies. He put this information out back in 2012 and through 2014, and I just found it pretty incredible following geoengineering. Also, big shout out to Enslaved by No Media. He's taking a lot of heat, but he's bringing a lot of great information. All we've learned, we could learn from Star Trek as far as what's going on with cell phones, tricorders, phasers, tasers on stun, etc. And they had the cloaking device way back then. Gene Roddenberry was a 33-degree Freemason as well. And here you can see from this video how you can see how the cloaking device works around a man. They have the material down to the micro levels, folks. They can do it on anything. And apparently, according to this video you're watching, they can have many different devices that are laying many layers of clouds for many different purposes up in the sky, including leaving chemtrails as well. So these are the scopes of the ships that he's identified over the years, and using photography, infrared, and other devices to show how they're hiding in plain sight in the clouds using the cloaking devices. Here, listen to them.
The lineup of ships are as follows. There is the huge blimp pictured at the top right. The largest craft of this system type is the aircraft carrier, the host, the base of the two-stage system.
Here you can see his mock-up of how the flight of the Aurora ship works, the main ship, in that it sprays cloud cover, also launches smaller aircraft, has docking stations, recharging stations, and it's in a vertical upright position to spray the clouds, so it makes it harder to see. But as we'll get into later, it's the signature of the tail, the entire tail frame, that gives it away from down below from our perspective. And it's also a device that is very low to the ground, not very high at all.
The next size down is very similar to the larger craft, but not in the shape of the front, but the similarities in the back. It seems to have only 2 of the 4 identical round engines found on the larger craft. However, it does also have the square corner thrusters that the large one has, and also has a center fan-like engine that shoots up and down perpendicular to the surface. I would guess that one was designed after the other, just at a different scale. This size craft is found almost always attached to the rear sides when it is docked. Wasn't there mention of an Aurora 1 and 2? Not that the names matter. Though one of the new craft to emerge in video has been what is commonly deemed as the TR-3B. Its regular triangle shape is different from most of the others in that it does not look like an aircraft from the Batman series. It attaches to the large craft on the underside near the rear. Then there are the variety of craft about the same size, but come in different shapes and are probably experimental aircraft from the span of decades. These can not only attach to the large aircraft carrier itself, but also attach to, recharge, and propel from the middle-sized vehicles. It's a chain. The next size up is the launch platform for the next smaller size down. And when they pop off, usually in an arc, they emit the cloud-making material stored within their hulls. Cover. All ships seem to have the ability to create clouds to some extent. However, the large ships use their smaller satellite craft to create cloud cover to hide them, probably with the use of strontium. Imagine a planet with several moons revolving around it, making smoke. I believe that this role is most useful in conjunction with aircraft that may not have the ability to generate cloud cover, like the blimps I've captured. To fabricate cloud layers. They can disintegrate clouds and they can make clouds. Though the small craft can make clouds, the effect is really achieved with the use of the large main craft, which can hold much more cargo than the smaller ships. The large ship also acts as an electrical energy source and supply depot for the smaller ships. But the large clouds, the ones that near the size of natural clouds, are created by the large 200-foot long aircraft.
So according to the author of What is in Our Skies, Mr. Sean Gautreaux, hope I pronounced that right, there are huge ships that are being cloaked right above us, not that high in the sky, and there have many different types of these ships that are in the sky laying clouds, using cloud cover, spraying the chemtrails and whatnot. And it goes on, the operations are going on around the world. I have reports and comments from all over that the spraying has just intensified. Blue sky days don't last very long anymore. Here's the signature of the back of one of these planes, what he helped identify, as well as the abilities to use these to launch into cloudbursts to accelerate or accentuate or to bring out even further whatever they want to do in the clouds.
Cloud busting. The craft drones, or cloud bombs, are launched from the larger ships into storm fronts, storm energy concentrations, and individual clouds to disrupt their natural developments. It is my belief that barium and strontium, which are the main components of chemtrails and both anti-moisture materials, are used in concentrated doses by the craft to achieve this effect. How it is collected through the air will be covered in the transfer section as well. The center large fan-shaped turbine serves several purposes. One, it stabilizes the tilt of the aircraft while in this low-level mission. Two, it also emits the cloud-like material as exhaust that is vented ahead of the aircraft or behind it. 3. This coil turbine is electrically charged. It is the center of electricity and probably gravity for the airframe and its satellite ships. It acts as a magnetic slingshot for the smallest of the craft. Reconnaissance. Remember the original role of the Aurora? It was meant to be not only a high-altitude bomber, but also a low reconnaissance aircraft. Though the large craft are too large to descend to ground level without being noticed, the smallest of its drones can. They can descend to the tops of trees silently and gather information via onboard Wi-Fi collection, microphones, cameras, sensors, whatever that can transmit in real time. Approximately 3 feet in height and delta-shaped, with a flat landing surface at the rear. Their LED hull panels can also mimic its surroundings, such as tree branches. However, filming an infrared light sometimes negates that effect. I thought I would shift gear for this next video and focus on the smaller drones. For the general public, these are the easiest to discern in the clouds. Why? Though cloaked, they leave a small, tight signature, however fleeting. The job of these is to provide cover for the larger ones and to randomize the angled cloud patterns generated by the next size up. They dock to the larger ones, refuel, pop off, emit clouds, and redock. These fly at the rear of the larger ones, spinning, flipping, revolving around to churn the material emitted. They also fly in advance of the larger craft so that the fronts are not exposed. The signatures they leave are one of the first things I noticed. I called them fishbone clouds or spine clouds. It seems like these have at least two propulsion systems. One is a central engine to produce thrust and movement. The other runs along the back edge, emitting cloud material. Their movements are not very fluid, and that they move in spurts. Pop, pop, pop. That's what causes the straight, perpendicular cloud shapes along a central spine or thrust engine. The signatures of these craft themselves can be seen as either small delta-shaped clouds or as a delta-shaped cavity within a cloud. I've seen these uncloaked on several occasions with my naked eye, but just for a split second, before it retreats back into the cloud. These are dark gray, and I would guess between 5 to 10 feet across. This is how it works. I began noticing very fast white flashes in my videos, things zipping by very quickly in an undetermined distance. I could also see that many of them followed a pattern. The pattern was the lines in the clouds. I also knew at that time how to spot the craft in the sky, via the lines in the clouds, and finding lower central engines which produce circular clouds. They all started lining up. I went through this video taken December 10th, 2011, frame by frame. I wanted to crop out those sections showing flashes to make a presentation. In this video, I will direct your attention again to the sky shifts described also in part 10. Patterns and repetition gave it away.
So I want to get into now how you can look up and see for yourself and using some of the Nikon Coolpix 900s and other devices to bring out the imagery of the signature patterns of what these demonic drones are doing above us, disguised as commercial jet aircraft, when in fact they are the actual drones themselves. Enslaved by No Media and others have shown that the drones disappear in the sky, and that they're holographic. You can see through them, and that they're very small, maybe 5 to 10 feet, just as what is in our skies is documented, as well as being the size of some of these aircraft, ship, demonic devices, demons, drones in the sky as well. So if we take a look at the pictures here, also thanks to Stormy Wizard, that was his contribution here. And you look at these when they get identified, and you see them disappear, and they turn into these bright lights and these orbs. And these orbs can clearly be seen once they dissipate or once they finish the spraying, and then they end up disappearing. Is that the end of the cloaking and they return to the mothership for refueling? I mean, take a look at this here. This looks like a bullet. And upon closer examination, we find that this bullet follows the same signature patterns as evidenced in the video here and provided for, of the size and the shape of the signature drones that have been identified by Mr. Gautreaux. So we see over and over again pictures and pictures of these planes all of a sudden just turning into these drones, and that's how you can spot them. And here we can plainly see a plane flying, or a holographic disguise, cloaking, and all of a sudden it gets lighter, and there's also bright spots that appear. It looks like the engines are on fire, the puffs start dissipating, and then turns into a fireball, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it eventually disappears. And we can see this again in slow motion as well, but this is the signature we need to look for in the skies, is these planes that stay in the sky for a very long time, much longer than commercial flights. They're much lower, only 1,000 to 2,000 feet as documented by Enslaved by No Media, and they're cloaked and hidden from us. So the only time we can see them is by the end of their trails. So this is a slowed down version, and you can see right up at the front at the beginning of the trails how it just disappears and goes away. And then also in this video you see the exhaust or the chemtrails in front of the plane. So this is them emitting it out of their portals in the demonic drones, and it's coming in front of the plane, and then it all of a sudden disappears into a little fireball, and then eventually goes blank and you cannot see it anymore. This is the signature of these demonic drones.
Cloud busting. It's a term I used until I realized it was a common term online. Again, repetition gave them away. By late July, I knew where to point the camera to capture the repeating patterns and shapes, and where to expect an anomaly. Our storms were intentionally being drained of energy and dissipated on macro and micro levels. But where were they getting their material, their fuel, their medium to complete all of this? In June, I used a long-range DSLR to record still shots at a distance of cloud patterns that were not natural. Triangle clouds, square clouds, clouds shaped like submarines, and certain animals began appearing. The spine cloud, the Christmas tree cloud, the crawfish cloud, and the dolphin cloud were some of the names that I used to identify these atypical but recurring types. I was reviewing photos from last year and noticed I was looking at the transfer that I've mentioned before. This is where the waiting craft are refueled via tubes of material shipped in horizontally. This is different from chemtrails. So I was picking out craft engines along the feed perimeter, and then this shadow shows up. I was not expecting it. I went back to previous photos from seconds before, and this shadow showed up in those too. Is this a stationary one, and what is it doing amid the refueling craft? Is it facilitating the process or hindering it? Though I believe that there are many sizes of them and that they can fly in different manners, I think that, in general, this is what they look like.